That's the name of it. Fell out of the cruiser. So today I pulled these lights out of the box that I had them in, and I finally got around to installing them. I've had them for about a month now. They're North Pole lights. The lights were $12.99 each. The wiring harness was a Nylite wiring harness they're both from Amazon. The wiring harness was $10.95 shipped. They're both Prime items, so I got them in 2 days. So if you have Prime, you can expect them in around that time period as well, I would assuming they're in stock and everything. So for $24, I have a set of lights that had a wiring harness with a relay, a fuse, and a switch. Not only that, they come with pigtails and the male and female connectors to apply onto the lights. And you get, along with that, a wiring harness that has a nice sheathing on it that seems like it's going to actually do a good job of protecting. And you get a light up switch for the dash, and it also has a pre-installed plug that you can disconnect to pass it through the firing walls, what I assume it's for. In many cars that would be a good option. So it was super simple to install these. All I had to have to install them was a 14mm socket and wrench, or a ratchet and socket and wrench, and then I needed a self-tapping screw for the relay here in the dash. Now, first thing I did for me was I went ahead and installed the lights on the tabs themselves. That way it just gives me orientation of where all the other wiring has to go and what I've got to do with it. Then the next thing I did was undid all the wiring, and then unrolled it and everything, and then I went ahead and attached the positive and negative to the terminal accessory bolts, and then I could kind of lay out how the wire was going to go. Now, with that in place and already kind of put where I wanted it, I went ahead and found a spot for the relay. And even though I didn't attach the relay at the moment, I went ahead and kind of placed it where I wanted it to go, so I knew how much wire I could pull and not pull to give me what I needed. And then I went ahead and ran the pigtails for each of the lights down around, and in my case I went around the battery because it's on the driver's side, and down up under the frame, and then over or down through the splash guard up over the frame rails, and then brought it up into the grill here. And I just left everything pulled through the grill hanging loose for a little bit, and then I went on to figuring out how to get my wire from the engine compartment into the cab. Now, originally I looked at going through the firewall and one of the grommets for the main wiring harness of the motor and everything like that, lighting and everything. But I found that the wiring harness was pretty big, and the grommet was not so much oversized that it was really hard to find a place to spread it out and get that through. And in my past experience, when I cut holes or force something like that, it tends not to seal as well, and then the water can come in. And since I do water crossings from time to time in this, I didn't really want an obvious area for water to come through, and I don't want to try to silicone it up all the time and make it work like that. So what I ended up doing was I ran it right through one of the inner fender well holes, ran it down through the fender and up over the top of the upper hinge on the driver's side door, and then I put a little bit of slack in the door jamb so that it will come. I ran it on the outside of the rubber grommet, because in my experience, when you shut the door on a wire that has a wiring harness that has a good sheathing on it, like this does, this thick rubber, it's not going to harm the wire. And it usually, the rubber, the foam or soft rubber gasket in the door jamb tends to conform to that a little bit better, especially since one side of it's a hard rubber and the other side's a soft rubber, and then it conforms to that, and I have less water leaking issues that way than doing it other ways that I've done it in the past. So that's how I did it. Now, is it the way that you should do it? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what I did. And then once I had the wire inside, I ran it up through the bottom of the dash, and then I popped out one of the accessory switch tab or hole fillers, and since this is a round switch, you have to drill a hole that's big enough for it to pop in and then have those clips that slip over. Well, it evidently needs a 3/4 inch drill bit, and I only had a 1/2 inch, so I drilled it out with 1/2 inch, and then I went back and I augured it out with a hand file to get it to the size that I wanted it to be. And then I put the switch plate in place, passed the wires through it, connected the switch, put it in, and then I tested it, and I could hear the relay clicking, which meant that I had everything connected correctly, and the light itself on the switch was turning on and off with the appropriate directions, which meant it was in the correct orientation as well. And then once that was done, I came back and I went ahead and I crimped on the metal connectors that came with the wiring harness loose in the bag, and I connected those to the two wires on each of the LEDs. And then once that was done, I routed the wire through the grill the way that it should be, and then I connected them. And then once both lights were connected, I turned it on, I checked to make sure that the lights were working, and then I used heavy duty zip ties. Even though they're long, I went ahead and used them, because even though I didn't need something that long, the heavy duty ones tend to last better for off-road applications in my experience. And I went ahead and I wound up like the probably 3 foot of extra wiring harness cable length into rolls, and I zip tied it in various places to the core support, the grill. Also inside here, I wound up the excess and just kept the excess as neat and tidy as possible to try to keep it from flopping everywhere, laying on other things and melting. And then once all that was done, I went back and I rechecked the lights again, as you saw at the beginning of the video, and they work. So it took me around 2.5 hours, but that's with all of the camera setup, breakdown, focusing and all that stuff. So if I was doing it on my own, I probably could have done it in around an hour and 45 minutes if I was just doing it without the cameras and all that stuff. And this was, by the way, by myself. The only thing that might add a little bit of time is the bolts that attach these bottom bracket, or the bracket itself, to whatever it is that you're attaching it to, the tabs, your bumper, whatnot. They are a little long, and as you can see, it's kind of cocked the light slightly because it's pushing on the bottom of the light. But that being said, you could cut them down about 1/8 of an inch and probably have more than enough space, but that would add a little bit of work to it as well. I wanted you guys to see what it looked like straight out of the box, so here it is. And maybe another 15-20 minutes to cut them down and file them off and make them so that they bolt into the nut easily and straight without cross threading. So let's say 2 hours for the install. If you're really experienced with this stuff, probably an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes. So I hope that kind of gives you an overview of what it took to install this stuff. It wasn't really hard. I haven't done wiring stuff in years and years, and I usually stay away from it because I hate trying to build relays and wiring harnesses and fuse blocks and all that into a wiring harness. But with this pre-made wiring harness for $10.95, it was a win-win. It was super quick, super easy. I didn't even look at the instructions. It just made sense. And here we are. We've got it. So look forward to other videos in the future where I review the longevity, how bright these things are, because it's the middle of the day and I haven't tested them at night yet. And we'll go and consider whether these were worth $24 or not as we continue to move on in these videos. If you are interested in them right now and this wiring harness, check the description below. I have affiliate links through Amazon there, which is where I bought these. These are Prime items, so with Prime like I have, I got it in 2 days. And once again, $24 approximately shipped. They were $12.99 for the light shipped, and then another $10.95 for the wiring harness shipped. And they came straight to my door, and here they are. You will need a 14mm socket for the bolts on the lighting harness and a 14mm wrench probably, and then you will need at least one self-tapping screw for this and some zip ties. And other than that, unless your application is really strange, I didn't need anything else. So hope that helps you out. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. And also beside the subscription button in YouTube, hit that bell and get notifications for every video that I put out. Don't miss one. And please go check out my Patreon. If you guys could support me, it'd help me be able to do more reviews like this and continue to bring you more videos about budget, value oriented, and even high end as time goes on components for your off-road vehicle. So thanks again, and hope to see you in the next video.